You're sleeping peacefully in your bed when a strange light flickers past your window. In Los Angeles, city lights are nothing new, but this glow is different. Warmer, flickering, alive. Suddenly, your parents burst into your room, voices urgent. Grab your backpack, take what you can, meet us downstairs. You scramble to gather your favorite hoodie, your charger, a photo frame, whatever fits. Minutes later, you're crammed into the car, watching from the back seat as orange flames crawl down the hills, itching towards your house.
That's the reality thousands of Angelos faced in January 2025 when the city became a furnace. Wildfires erupted with terrifying speed, fueled by brittle hillsides, relentless drought, and aging power infrastructure. Within days, over 16,000 structures were destroyed. Streets that once echoed with kids playing, families cooking, and neighbors laughing were swallowed by smoke and silence. It wasn't the first fire season, but for many, this time was different. This time, there was nothing left to come back to. And in one of the wealthiest cities in the world, the flames just didn't expose brittle brush, they exposed something far more flammable: deep structural inequality.
Within 72 hours, nearly 200,000 people were forced to evacuate. Some left with just a few minutes' warning. Others stayed behind until the smoke choked the sky. When they returned, they found silence and soot. The wildfires didn't just destroy property, they shattered routines. They unraveled stability. Children tried to keep up with school from borrowed motel Wi Fi. Parents scrambled to find work, food, and answers.
The real emergency began after the flames were gone. Families faced housing insecurity, job loss, disrupted schooling, and emotional trauma. With insurance delays, food shortages, and scattered communities, survival meant more than escaping the fire. It meant rebuilding life from the ashes.
Student Isabella Orlando recalls her experience with the fires, having grown up in LA her entire life.
In the beginning of this year, things in LA were really bad. The LA fires escalated really quickly. I remember checking my phone constantly to see if our neighborhood was still safe, but eventually my family just had to evacuate. My family grabbed the essentials they could off the top of their heads and called to ask me what they would need from my room. And I mean, in the heat of the moment, I don't really know what I would want to take. So I was like, some of my old photos, electronics, anything they could honestly carry out of my room, and felt like I would really want, because I didn't remember what was in my room. But luckily my family was able to go back after a few days, but the air quality stayed bad for weeks. And you couldn't really go outside without a mask, and not because of COVID this time, obviously, but schools were shut down for about 2 weeks and everything felt kind of frozen, very similar to COVID, honestly. But when you think about it, it wasn't just people who were affected. There were forests destroyed, animals got displaced, the land took a crazy hit too. Even now when I check Google Maps or go on TikTok, there's always a new video about an LA landmark just beginning to be rebuilt or just now reopening. And I'm excited to go home for the summer, but very nervous to see some of my favorite places with tons of memories just gone.
The first problem we want to focus on is the housing issue. Los Angeles already had a housing crisis, but the fires made it worse, much, much worse. Thousands who were already rent burdened lost the little security they had. Emergency shelters filled up fast, FEMA aid took weeks, and those already living paycheck to paycheck, a fire didn't just destroy a home, it pushed them back into homelessness with no clear way out.
In the past, fire season in California followed a pattern, something predictable, but those days are gone. Droughts now last longer, rainfall is irregular, and land doesn't have time to recover. The few rainy months spark rapid vegetation growth, what firefighters now call green fuel, as soon as summer hits. It dries out at record breaking heat and fierce Santa Ana winds. And what you have is a system primed to combust. These aren't isolated events. They're the new normal, an ecological pattern shaped by climate.
The fire that burned through parts of Topanga Canyon and Woodland Hills, it wasn't started by lightning. It wasn't even caused by an accident. It was preventable. Faulty power lines again sparked one of the most destructive blazes in the region. Over 80% of wildfires are caused by human activity, and increasingly, that activity is connected to failing infrastructure, owned and managed by corporate utilities. PG&E and Southern California Edison have faced lawsuits, fines, and federal scrutiny, but still, year after year, the sparks return and communities pay the price.
Air turned toxic. For over a week, it was unsafe to go outside without a mask. Not for COVID, but for smoke. Air quality across LA dropped to levels typically seen in industrial disaster zones. ER visits doubled, schools shut down, and for those with chronic conditions like asthma, COPD, or heart problems, the smoke wasn't just a nuisance, it was a death sentence. But the damage didn't stop at the human level. Forests were lost, animal populations displaced, soil eroded, and the land just doesn't heal from this. It remembers.
Fire is political. Who gets warned? Who gets helped? Who gets protected? And who's left behind? Activists across LA have demanded change for years. Better zoning laws, climate resilient infrastructure, equitable aid, yet real reform is slow. Social media has filled the gap, documenting the failures, organizing response networks, and holding officials accountable. For some, it's been a lifeline, for others, a last resort. What's clear is this: if the government won't listen, communities will raise their voices, online, in the streets, and at the ballot box.
Fires will return, that much is certain. But what isn't certain, what's still up to us, is how we respond. Whether we rebuild fairly, whether we prepare everyone, whether we make sure the most vulnerable aren't abandoned. That's the real test, not of nature, but of society.
Our goal is to support local recovery, push for environmental justice, elect leaders who treat climate change not as a future threat, but as a present crisis. Because the embers from 2025 are still smoldering, especially from LA. And in California, fire season has no end, only a question who gets to survive it.